Hey guys, this is Justin with Crispi, and I'm here with Mr. Kendall Card, and we are here to do a little chatting about boots and hopefully point you guys in the right directions that have questions and also answer some of those questions in the process. So yeah, we'll dive right in. We're gonna kind of touch base on some early season boots, specializing in warm weather and archery seasons. So
yeah, we get a lot of questions right now from guys both here in the West as well as a lot of guys that are in the East or Midwest that have not come out to like Colorado, Idaho. This seems like those are like the most popular places that most people
everybody
are going.
wants to come west, so and that's kind of the pinnacle.
And yeah, we get a lot, and then we also have guys that are like, hey, I've got one boot that kind of does everything. It's generally a leather boot or a 10-inch type boot is what I talk to a lot of guys that are, and they're looking for that secondary boot, maybe something a little lighter weight, non-insulated. So we've got a good collection of our boots here that are non-insulated. We've got some synthetics, some leather. We've got some with added ankle support. But let's talk about kind of what you're hearing, Justin, on the phones, as well as people that you've been at some of the archery shoots. I've been to a couple archery shoots up in Oregon, Idaho, Washington. So when we talk about light, kind of lightweight, which is these models right here, the Crossover Pro, which is new this year.
Yep.
The Lapponia, which we had last year, and again, it continues to do really well, especially guys that are ounce savers. We've got the Thor in 2 different flavors, and the Summit in 2 different flavors. So let's talk about these as it pertains to archery season and what you're talking. What are you telling guys? If a guy calls up and says, "Hey, I live in Utah, or I live in Idaho, or Arizona, or I'm coming out for archery season. I've got a good boot, but I'm looking for something a little lighter weight." Kind of tell me how that conversation is going and what you're telling guys as it pertains to these lighter weight boots that we offer.
Yeah, so I mean the big thing you're going to notice, especially as Kendall points out this side of the table, you're getting into that EVA sole, which is going to cut a lot of your weight. So you get a lot of guys that do have something like our Nevada, kind of our do-it-all boot, that has that polyurethane sole. It's the first thing they notice. You're switching to a different sole. And then all of them are going to that Cordura, primarily Cordura upper, which is going to allow that boot to breathe really well.
With some suede combination.
Yeah, a little bit of
here.
suede in there that's going to give you some durability, some change. And then you go to kind of our lightweight leather, and then also the suede and the crossover there. So I think what I've been trying to get a feel for is what guys are looking for. You get guys that, like you said, have another boot and they're getting into an extended quiver, I guess, and they want to have multiple boots that run both seasons. And then also you get a guy that primarily hunts early season, but then stretches into maybe early rifle. Want something that can kind of do a little bit later season. Right. And we definitely have that as well.
What are you telling guys? So let's start here on the right. With the crossover, what kind of guy are you steering towards a crossover, and why? Have you had a chance to use this boot?
So I've had a chance to wear it some. I haven't put it to the test too much. First thing I can say for myself is I think it's one of our more comfortable boots.
Super comfortable.
I really like the tongue, how it wraps over. It's a stretched nylon tongue, which a lot of guys have fallen in love with. And like the Thor, very comfortable, very form-fitting.
Valdres has the same type of tongue.
And it's just, you don't have to worry about the slipping of the tongue. So I think that's great. The nice part about it is it's a soft boot. It does not have a very stiff sole. It's extremely lightweight. It's got the extended Gore-Tex in here, so it's going to breathe a lot better than a lot of boots, but still be really waterproof. Sure. The nice part is it's not as high up as some of these other boots are. So
kind of like a 3/4 height.
So, for a lot of guys, it's not as invasive, I guess you would say, and it doesn't have the boot feel, but it gives the boot performance. So you're going to get a nice sturdy platform, but you're going to still feel very, I'd say, stealthy. Very good for archery hunting.
Yeah. The one thing I like about this boot, and I get guys that are asking, guys that are mostly going archery season that maybe have been accustomed to like a trail runner. Absolutely. And they're looking for, or maybe like a trail running style shoe, but they want to stay dry because they want gore, and they want gore that goes all the way around their foot. They want something that's going to last, maybe a little longer durability, and they're also looking for something that's still light and is non-insulated. And so I've been using the crossover as well this summer. In fact, last night I did a little bonsai, rallied in to check trail cameras with my headlamp, and And I grabbed the crossover. It's super warm. I think we did like 5 miles is all.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's super comfortable. I wear it with a lot of these. This boot wear with a gaiter. So I tell guys, if you're going to Nevada or maybe a bow hunting here in Utah opens in 2 weeks, middle of August. Even guys that are hunting in Colorado, I think a couple guys I'm going to go with. One of the guys I know is going to be wearing this in Colorado. So if you're accustomed to kind of a trail running shoe, or you want a light boot that will keep you dry, that also isn't too terribly expensive either.
No, yeah, it's a good way to get into it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've talked to some guys too. I mean, it's a fairly new boot, so we don't have a ton of feedback on guys, that have spent a season in it. From a little bit of feedback I have got, the guys running this in the Spring Bear,
That's
they got it as like
good application.
a camp shoe almost in a sense. And a lot of guys I've talked to is they ended up putting this thing on second day, kind of back at camp, and then they ended up hunting the rest of the hunt in this boot, just because it was so comfortable and it does run and it checks a lot of the boxes for a lot of guys.
So along that same category, why? Kind of one of the reasons I recommend the Lapponia. Again, it's in the light and fast kind of category. It is extremely light. The lug on the bottom is different than the crossover. It's just a little bit different pattern. It actually is more like a running shoe style.
Definitely.
Because it's narrow here, the curvature of the sole. But the Lapponia is really more ideal for a guy that, hey, I want a little bit of ankle support. I want a full leather package because once in a while, it's really rare, but once in a while you can get like a thorn or a cactus piercing that.
Absolutely. And it's more of a boot package.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, you get into that.
It's a shoe-ish feel.
Yeah, definitely.
Very, very soft and flexible on the flex. But I have guys that have trucker hunted in this, elk, deer, like basically everything, even mild snow if your feet run kind of hot. But the Lapponia has been we haven't really focused on a lot.
No, and I think
I'm
it needs a
recommending
little
it
bit
more
more
and more.
due. I mean, especially for guys that are bow hunters true and they don't pick up a firearm. A boot like this, I mean, it's our lightest and softest flex. You're gonna feel the ground. It still gives you the boot feel, but still allows you to be very stealthy.
Yeah, you can
stalk in a boot like this.
I mean, you're gonna pull off your boots inside 50s.
Yeah, I think you're gonna use your socks later, but this is still gonna give you that feel and allow you to get into stalking range and even closer stalking range before you feel like you need to bail and go with the socks.
I know that a couple of the guys with the Born and Raised crew are using that, and I mean they use that through most of their experience last fall.
Yeah.
So it's a very worthy boot.
Yep. It's got that
very
stretch
specialized
nylon.
though.
Yeah, it's got that stretch nylon tongue too, so it cuts a lot of weight. It's super comfortable.
Next one in the lineup here is the Thor. It's been extremely popular.
For a new boot, it's crazy.
We've highly. I think we underestimate a little bit, like the popularity. Why?
100%.
Why do you think? I mean, you talk to hundreds of guys. Why do you think the Thor is one that more guys are reaching for?
I think it's got a stiffer sole, and I think there's a curve in the market for a lot of guys that represent, that want that stiffer sole. They recognize the platform. They're used to having a stiffer sole too, so they're coming off of more of a mountaineering style.
So these are the guys that they have a stiff boot, or they have an existing boot, and they're looking for their number two.
Absolutely,
but they want non-insulated.
I think it's guys too that have looked at the Summit, and have been a little hesitant and really love it, want to get into the boot, but wanted a stiffer platform, and I think they get that.
So what advantage are you telling guys that the stiffer platform has?
So the nice part about the stiffer platform is when you get up in nasty terrain, rocks, sheep country, anything like that, side hilling, that platform does a lot more work for you than you have to do. Sure. So you let the boot work for you. I do tell a lot of guys though, going with a stiffer boot like this, if you're not used to it, or just in general, it's gonna hurt you a little bit more in gradual terrain. So like that approach.
Okay.
If you're not constantly in the nasty, then I think it counteracts a little bit, and you do have to work a little bit more. But the nice thing about a lot of our boots is they've got that rocker built into them with the board last. So a lot of our stiff boots don't feel
super stiff
like it would be. A lot of guys take that boot and they flex it, and it's not indicative to how the boot's actually how it's gonna run.
Obviously, especially at the end, when you have it on your foot, the torque as well as the force in your leg muscle is going to be a lot more than what you're going to feel.
Yeah, and
simply by doing this in the store.
And just by trying it on, I mean, I see it on guys' face all the time at shows when they try that boot on. They're like, man, I wasn't expecting to like this. But it's comfortable, and it's got a little bit snugger of a fit, much more like a mountaineering style. So I think guys like that fit. It's very customizable. And that lace feels very good. It's that stretch nylon lace.
Yeah. The tongue, you mean?
Yeah, I mean the tongue there.
Yeah.
So I think guys get their foot in there, and they're instantly like, this is great.
I think
it's comfortable. It's lightweight.
There's one thing I tell guys too. I think the impression is, or the perception is, I'm going to a stiffer boot, and so they're thinking the entire package is stiffer. And it really,
absolutely,
the stiffness in this boot is really in the lower, in the sole midsole. The upper, as I'll kind of demonstrate here, it's still. I mean, you still have a boot support, but it is soft, and I think that's a very unique combination. I don't know very many hunting boots that specifically are built with this combination. I think that's why the Thor is a kind of a fan favorite right now.
Oh, absolutely. And the nice part about that softness is, once again, we're talking early season boots, archery, hunting. It's stealthy. It doesn't quite go up as high. It's tapered in the back. So it allows you to be very agile. And I think that's, like you said, there's not a lot on the market you can point to that gives you a platform like this, and then is lightweight and flexible. So
the Summit's the next one in kind of our category of lightweight, still obviously a boot that can be used in archery season. And we're talking archery season, I mean, basically here in Utah, middle of August through end of September. I mean, guys are, and granted, we realize that in some locations, I mean, last year Montana was full winter by the second, third week of September.
Absolutely.
But the Summit is one that we recommend, and I'll tell you a little bit why. I mean, I used this boot last year as my primary boot all summer at the archery shoots, scouting. This was kind of my go-to boot. After my hunt in Alaska, I came back and I did elk, I did Colorado deer in the high country. I think we packed in 9 miles. I ended up packing in and out twice when I took my deer out and then took my elk out.
Put the ankle support to the test.
This thing is, and it was solid. Definitely, I liked how light it was. In the previous year, I'd been wearing the Wyoming, which is maybe just a smidge heavier.
Yeah.
It breathes extremely well. It's comfortable right out of the gate. I mean, this boot was very comfortable. And so I think the guys that are like, hey, I want more of a boot sole. So the one main difference I show people, and you probably do this when you're talking boots, and you can physically show them, is you look at the sole pattern, like between the Thor and the Summit, and the Thor is definitely more of an active looking sole, and the Summit you'd go to more of a traditional boot sole, a little wider in the center here, wider in the heel, which is going to give you more stability. And also the shape of it. The other thing I point out to guys is that the lug is a little deeper on the Summit, which means A, you're going to get a little more cushion, but B, you're also going to be maybe a little louder as you're walking through the woods or the mountains or whatever than you would
definitely like a light
Thor.
And fast. That Thor is the definition of light and fast.
And you can't. So Summit has been one. I mean, it continues to. I think a lot of guys that are like,
true.
They're like, hey, I've got a leather boot. I really want to try something that breathes better, but still is rugged, and I can rally. And the Summit is for me, it's still probably my go-to
I would
until
agree.
It starts snowing.
I think for an all-around boot, I mean, this is by far our #1 seller right now for the season. And I think it ticks most of the boxes, does everything very well across the board. As opposed to where some of these other boots are much more
specific,
fine-tuned, and guys that know exactly what they're looking for. For the guy that's looking for, like I said, a quiver edition, a lightweight boot, but isn't quite sure how to put his finger on it. I mean, it's hard not to push them towards the Summit, because it is. I mean, I wear the Summit all the time, to shows and everything, and it's very seldom that at the end of the day I'm like, God, I gotta get my shoes off, and that's just the Summit. You can wear this thing nonstop, and it's unbelievably comfortable. And it feels like a boot, And that's the big thing. I get a lot of comparisons between the two, and we've covered the Thor some. You get a little bit more ankle support out of this. None of these boots that we have right here
is a little higher especially on the back, and it feels like there's a little more
You do get more just because of the structure of the boot, but none of these guys carry our ABSS, our ankle bone support system, simply because we're cutting weight, and that's what you're looking for. But just because of the build of the boot, the way they've got this weight that comes over and a little bit higherness, of the boot, it's just a little bit more stability, so you definitely get that feel.
Sure.
So.
And the black version is one we did special for Black Ovis, so it's the only place that people can find that this year.
Yeah.
But all of these boots, from basically everything we've talked about here, again, lightweight, non-insulated, specific uses from Thor over. Thor, a lot of guys are using it very general, but the Summit, of course, is a very general use.
Absolutely.
Kind of across the board. A lot terrain type, kind of does everything. Let's talk one more boot over about the Valdres, and I think it's really kind of a sleeper boot in our line.
It is. It's I think it's very underrated. I think a lot of guys see that.
Why would a guy that's going on his first elk hunt, let's say Colorado, going second week of September, he's going archery hunting, why would he choose the Valdres over what we've talked about here?
So the nice part is when you get into this boot, you bump into leather. It's a slightly thinner leather than some of our other boots, so it cuts down the weight. The biggest thing guys notice is with this boot is when you pick it up. So you bump into a lot here. You get the polyurethane sole with the crossbow frame in there. And that's just gonna give durability and longevity of the boot. I mean, that boot just lasts, and it takes a beating. You get the rubber rand, which it's gonna add a little bit of weight, but it's in the high wear areas, also meant to last. This boot also continues over with our stretch nylon tongue, and it's the same thing. You guys that put this boot on, they're like, it fits really, really,
what does
really
that
well.
What does that feel like to you when you put that stretch nylon tongue?
So it's almost like a glove fit. I mean,
it is.
It's snug. You put it in. I will say, you do. I've heard some guys talk where they think their boot might be leaking a little bit, but you get like the cold sensation going.
You
through
can feel
water.
the temperature change through it.
Yeah,
I've done the same thing.
It's amazing, but it kind of shows to how well that breathes. So the nice part about this boot is by having that, you get a leather boot, you get the protection, but it's still going to breathe through the tongue. It's going to breathe where all the moisture holds in the boot and let it come out. So this boot, like the others, doesn't have that ABSS system in there. So you still get the 8-inch boot, and you get the support from the 8 inches.
Of leather, and the protection of leather, too.
But you're losing a lot of that. So I can tell you this boot, Southwest area, this is like king. I mean, for a lot of the guys that are in hot climate but still want a leather boot, maybe worried about cactus.
They don't want to sacrifice. I mean,
they don't want to puncture.
Fabric can be punctured.
Yep,
synthetic,
absolutely.
Isn't as bomber as the leather.
Yeah.
Breathes a little better, but it's kind of give and take depending on the situation.
Definitely.
Depending on what you're looking for.
I talked to a lot of guys with this boot too, coming from the East Coast. This right here, I think, is your ultimate, leather boot for the East Coast guy that's going to come west. If you're
like early bow season,
you're coming out early bow season, or even for a guy that's coming maybe early rifle and not quite worried about it, the leather is going to give you a little bit of that insulation factor.
Sure.
But the thing is they can turn around and take this boot and use it the other 90% of the time when they're back home.
Yeah.
And you're buying a boot that you're going to use constantly, so it's nice to be able to have something that's universal.
I know that's one question I get from guys, or one question I ask a lot of guys is, are you buying this boot specifically just for Western hunting?
Yeah.
Or do you anticipate using this like all the time? And I have, I have
guys. The dynamic.
I have guys that reply, no, I'm buying this just for Western hunting.
Yeah.
I've got boots that I'm going to use. And we're talking guys that are east of Colorado.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which we get a lot of inquiries.
We get a lot. We get inquiries from all the way on the East Coast. Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, guys that are making a trip west to chase mule deer or elk. So, and I think it is a great option because you get guys that really want a leather boot.
If I live in the West, based on the guys you were talking to, why would I still choose the Valdres?
I think you get a great bang for your buck in a boot like this. I mean, it's also a great price point, especially compared to some of our other full leathers, and it gives you everything you need and nothing you don't.
Sure.
It doesn't give you an overdeveloped boot that you don't need for early season. It cuts the weight, gives you the stability and durability. And there's a lot of guys out there that are leather boot guys. Doesn't matter what you can throw at them. They love leather and they want that leather. And I try and push this boot towards a lot of guys because it's overlooked. Yeah. A lot of guys go straight over to the Nevada.
They bounce from here and they go straight in, here.
And there's such a middle ground there that a lot of guys overlook that.
As we saw last year with the Northern Rockies, the elk season got nasty in a hurry.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, none of my hunts got really that crazy. A lot of rain here in Utah, but so switching gears a little bit, and we're still staying in the uninsulated. And this conversation we wanted to focus on bow season, And so we got 3 other boots that that in my opinion you could wear depending on, because you can manage. A lot of guys will talk to you and say, hey, man, should I go insulated or non-insulated? And I think you can heat manage quite a bit based on your
Really
socks and based on how your feet normally run. So even though these 3 are insulated, the Nevada we have that in the non-insulated and the insulated. This is a non-insulated version. You wouldn't be able to notice the difference if you put them in. I have guys ask me that same question.
They feel, as far as fit goes,
they're the same fit.
They're the same fit.
Yeah.
So,
but what as maybe the terrain, not the terrain, but I'm saying the terrain maybe it gets a little more gnarly, or the weather turns a little more sour. I think that these boots might have a little more advantage. There's just a little bit more to them.
Yeah. So I mean, you're bumping up more into a boot, so you're kind of crossing, our Nevada with some of our, the Summit.
And you're leaving the lightweight world.
You're leaving the lightweight world.
From an ounces standpoint.
These are the guys that are like, they see the value in it, and they're worth taking the weight.
Totally.
All of these boots have our ABSS support, so
extra ankle support.
the guys that I talk to are like, man, I got bad ankles. I instantly push them over towards the Idaho or Wyoming, which the taller boot is our Idaho, the smaller boot is the Wyoming. They're the exact same fit, exact same boot. You're changing 2-inch difference there. Just a little added support. And then the other thing too is guys that are concerned with weight. They're going in for 10 days. They've got a 75-pound pack, and then as luck would have it, they've got an elk that they're carrying out as well. So it's good to plan for that. And guys that see that, they kind of see that Idaho and the Wyoming, and it's a great option.
One of the things I tell people, the main difference is once you go from the Valdres over, you touched on this a little bit. You feature the dual density polyurethane midsole that's got the crossbow framing, and while EVA is a great material and it's lighter ounce per ounce, the polyurethane is heavier. But one of the things I tell guys is, if you do end up carrying a heavy load, like you just mentioned, 75-pound load in or 60-pound load in, and you're also coming out with an elk or making multiple trips, or you're going a lot of miles, and maybe a guy's got like maybe knees that aren't 16 anymore. So you will feel over many miles better cushioning and better support out of the dual density polyurethane midsole. You do add a few more ounces in weight.
Absolutely.
But I think the Idaho, with the added ankle support, the dual density midsole, I feel more comfortable putting a gentleman in that.
Yep.
That is like, hey, I either have bad ankles, like you said,
or you get concerned about leg fatigue,
or
fatigue.
I spend a lot of time on my feet, or it's real rugged. A lot of guys that guide, I'm pushing more into this zone.
Absolutely.
But they want a non-insulated boot.
Absolutely.
I've hunted in both. I've actually hunted in all 3 of these. I like the Idaho. I'm not a 10-inch guy, 10-inch boot guy. I love the Nevada. The Nevada to me is like coming home to mom's cooking. I mean, it is.
It's the bread and butter.
You cannot go wrong with
It
that.
is.
So, let's talk briefly as we kind of round out this discussion about the archery season boots and the September elk hunting boot. Types of terrain. Like let me throw out a couple scenarios to you. If a guy says, "Hey, I spent a lot of time in real rugged terrain, a lot of blowdown, jumping over, I'm in deep pines." What is a boot that you kind of push people towards? Maybe a couple, and why?
I mean, the first thing is usually, especially something like that, rough terrain. Idaho and Wyoming seems to be a good spot. You're jumping logs. I mean, that's a perfect time to roll an ankle. Good support. The other thing too is blowdown. You're stepping on limbs and everything else, and that polyurethane sole is just unbelievably durable.
That midsole, yeah.
So that's a great option, but also so is this Valdres. For guys that really say they want a lighter boot and they want non-insulated, you're not concerned about ankle support, but they want the durability of leather. But then you also get that nice sole somewhere around that range.
Okay.
I think it's a good fit.
If a guy's hunting elk more in like, hey, I'm doing everything, still kind of pushing Valdres or Summit.
Valdres and Summit.
Okay.
I think a lot of the guys that are in the Thor are coming to us saying, "I want a stiffer boot. I like stiffer boots,
I want a lightweight boot."
And I want a lightweight
Yeah.
boot. Most of the guys, they've had an eye on that Thor, and I'll be the first one to tell you that the Thor it's eye candy. I mean, I think it draws a lot of people's attention.
It's a unique boot.
It's a unique boot.
Yeah,
it looks good.
different.
It's great. But I can also tell you, I've talked a lot of guys into the summit that were interested in this, and then vice versa. So, I think they have their niche.
The underlying element of this discussion is that Justin and I spend a lot of time on the phones talking with guys, and we enjoy it. We get to know a lot of really cool hunters, a lot of guys that have ambition for their hunts, and we spend a lot of time at both trade shows. You and I went to multiple archery shoots this summer, really trying to get in front of guys and talk to them about the boots. And so we wanted to have this discussion about archery season specifically, non-insulated boots, going from kind of lightweight to kind of does everything to maybe a little heavier in the ounces, but more more beefy.
Features,
And so hopefully this discussion has been worthwhile. If you guys have any other questions or maybe something we haven't answered here, comment below in the video. We'll check that. Hit us up on Instagram or give us a call.
Answered.
Drop us an email. But again, Justin, this is a good conversation and one that we have every single day.
All the
with
time.
Guys.
And I think one thing just to kind of to stick in there as well is for you guys that think deer season here is opening in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
We specialize in very low break-in times because of our design. Mm-hmm. So I like to say we specialize in the procrastinators. so any of you guys that are sitting out there that are like, you're pulling your boots out, it's time to do it. It's not too late to get into that boot for the season.
That's true.
Don't feel like it's like, man, I don't have too much to break this boot in. It's not going to be like that.
No.
So give us a shout. If you do have any questions, like you said, reach out to us in any form. We'll try and answer your questions.
Perfect. Great discussion. Thanks.
Yeah,
thanks for chatting.
No, it was awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks.